Hello, and thanks for joining us from Terry Gilliam's movie that took 20 years to make to a film where Cate Blanchett plays 13 different roles. Welcome to Encore's weekly film show.
Aja, you are in control of your life.
He actually believes he's done Quixote.
This is going to be fun.
And we're joined in the studio by our film critic, Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Eve.
Now, we're going to start with a movie called Manifesto, starring Cate Blanchett. Now, the Irish Times said she plays 13 characters in this movie, which is 12 too many. Do you agree?
That's a good headline, but in fact, I disagree. And I have to say, I had just been confronted with a sold-out cinema with a movie I wanted to see, so this was my second choice. And even going in disgruntled, it absolutely won me over. I liked it within seconds. Blanchett interprets a fetching cross-section of individuals, male, female, well-to-do, destitute, who recite various declarations about the nature of art written over the centuries by real people, most of them famous. Cate gets to use all sorts of accents and wear all sorts of makeup, and Eve, she even makes fun of the sort of news program that 24-hour news channels do by playing the anchor in the studio and the reporter out in the field. Both characters are named Cate and Eve. They keep addressing each other as Cate. One of the funniest episodes is when the rules for the filmmaking outlined by the Dogma 95 crowd in Denmark became a classroom exercise for very young children with Cate as the teacher. There's a lot about art and whether art can be for art's sake or not, or be conceptual. There's an astonishing real location in horrible disrepair that seems to go on for as far as the drone camera can see. Now, the director has an artistic vision, which is a good thing to have if you're making an art film. And I'm told that at first this was a series of installations in different rooms in galleries, and you would go from performance to performance and say, well, look, it's Cate Blanchett again. She must have given them a really good flat rate not to hire any other actors, but that is part of the joke, which I actually found pretty funny. Let's take a look.
All that is solid melts into air. To put out a manifesto, you must want A, B, C to fulminate against 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All current art is fake.
She does look like one of our presenters,
She does,
doesn't
doesn't
she?
she?
Do we have to be familiar with the people who wrote the original manifestos to understand?
Oh, not at all. We know that the words being spoken have been borrowed from wise individuals, from Marx to Lars von Trier, but we don't necessarily know who said what, which raises questions about attribution in art. And I think we'd all still be moved upon hearing Beethoven's Ode to Joy, whether we'd ever heard of Beethoven himself or not. But here's something to think about. What if an Englishman or an Englishwoman had actually written that? Would it still be suitable as the anthem of the European Union post-Brexit? Screw the European Union, we are leaving, ha, ha, ha. You know, when people assess something by saying it's good, but it's not for everybody, this is the absolute embodiment of that. I liked it. You may not, but I am very happy that Cate Blanchett and Julian Rosenfeld got together to explore his artistic vision. So there.
Oh, Lisa, it's been a while since you've sung for us in the studio. Speaking of artistic vision, Terry Gilliam has spent the past 20 years trying to get his film about Don Quixote made. He suffered setback after setback. Actors were injured or died. Sets were destroyed. Financing fell through. The Cannes Film Festival announced The Man Who Killed Don Quixote as their closing night film. And then it was down to the wire as French courts had to decide whether to let it be shown or not, since a former producer was blocking things. Gilliam had a minor stroke, but both he and the film made it to Cannes, and it's in French theatres now. Here's the director.
It's been a pain in the ass for 25 years. And finally, we got him out of the system. That was the important thing. You know, Quixote is, I mean, we all know Quixote and Sancho are two of the greatest icons ever written. They represent both the greatness, the dreams of people, and the reality of life. And how can you not make a film about Quixote in some ways? Because and Cervantes was so brilliant in his writing. It was so funny. It was about society. It was about everything. And hopefully we got a bit of that into the film.
Adam Driver never looks that happy to be there, does he? Was the man who killed Don Quixote worth the wait?
Well, I'm all for stories about the lost art of chivalry. I'm all for damsels in distress and tilting at windmills. And I especially like movies that show you how hard it is to make a movie by being hard to make in the first place. A wonderful documentary called Lost in La Mancha explored the apparent curse on this production, and then countless other things went wrong after that. What's on screen is a story within a story within a story within a story, which is something motion pictures really lend themselves to. So Adam Driver plays Toby, a hotshot director making a commercial in Spain with actors playing Don Quixote and Sancho Panza. Everybody is cynical and overworked. Nobody is particularly admirable. Rotten crowd. A gypsy magician comes up with a copy, of all things, of Toby's student film, which he shot a decade earlier, not far from that very spot. And we learned that he had cast a local shoemaker, played by Jonathan Pryce, as Don Quixote, and he promised the innkeeper's 15-year-old daughter that he was going to make her a star. In the present, Toby, on the run from his agent and producer, reconnects with the cast of his student film, and their circumstances, shall we say, have changed. And soon so have his, because he finds himself riding a donkey and passing for Sancho Panza, what Quixote calls his squirrel, which is squire plus squirrel. Let's take a look.
Hunter, foul bandido, arrestan, and face justice. Cut. Perfecto. Quixote vive! Quixote vive! Wow. I am Don Quixote. You are Don Quixote. I am Don Quixote.
Lisa, this film took 20 years to make. Does it still feel contemporary, or has its time come and gone?
That's a good question. There is something old-fashioned about it, not in a bad way. I think the improvements in technology sort of work in the story's favor, but it really is people on horseback nurturing delusions and having adventures full of dire circumstances and close calls. You encouraged me a little earlier, so here goes. This film took a long time to make. There were quite a few things at stake. Suspense till the very last minute. All we knew were the actors who were in it. There's Jonathan Pryce. His Quixote's quite nice. I'm not sure Adam Driver adds the ideal spice. Terry Gilliam's team is the creme de la creme and made, after give or take 25 years, an impossible dream. The French courts did come through in the end. It did close the Cannes Film Festival, and it's on 250 prints around France right now before reaching the rest of the world eventually.
Okay, well, to a film in English now that's been adapted from a French book. It's called The Extraordinary Journey of the Fakir. There hasn't been much publicity about this movie.
Could it be that they're afraid of being accused of doing Fakir news? Fakir news, get it? The extraordinaire voyage du Fakir qui était resté coincé dans une armoire Ikea, written by former policeman Romain Puertolas, was a surprise hit for iconoclastic French publishing house Le Dilettante back in 2013. Over 600,000 copies were sold in French, and the translation rights were picked up by over 30 countries worldwide. So in the story, we meet Asha Patel as a young boy in the slums of Mumbai, India. His mother is a hardworking laundress. She insists that he has no father and just sort of sprouted from somewhere, and she says that if he doesn't stop getting into trouble, then she is not going to take him with her when she goes to Paris. Of course, we are led to believe that their chances of going to Paris are about equal to my chances of being elected Papadum Baker of the Year. They're dirt poor, something Aja only becomes aware of when he starts going to school. So in hopes of getting rich, he learns sneaky magic tricks, perfects his pickpocketing skills, even goes to jail. But one day, having grown up to be the incredibly famous Indian actor Dhanush, Aja, armed with a passport and a plane ticket and a counterfeit €100 bill, actually does fly to Paris. And at the airport, he's picked up by a cab driver who is also a con man. But that's perfectly okay because he pays him with the counterfeit €100 bill.
Oh, my goodness. Is this a story of petty larceny then, or is there more to it?
Well, this movie, I'm going to use a technical term, is nice. It's a nice movie. It tells of poverty and loss and thwarted romance and illegal immigrants, of stowaways and criminals, of hard choices, incredible luck. And it's never too edgy or too suspenseful or too violent. It just rolls along at a nice pace, telling a nice story. He ends up in the hotel suite of a movie star visiting Rome, played by Berenice Bejo. Here's Bejo describing the tone of the film.
We are not in reality, we're a little above reality. It is very reminiscent of Jules Verne. We are there to travel, to dream. It is where cinema meets comics, that meets cartoons. That's what we like when we take our children to see animated films.
So it's bracketed as one big flashback in a Mumbai juvenile prison where 3 boys have just been sentenced to spend 4 years behind bars. Aisha shows up to show them, to tell them a story, and the movie we watch is the story he's telling. The director, Ken Scott, also made Starbuck, you may remember, which was a very nice movie about a man who discovered that he had fathered hundreds of children as a sperm donor. I think 533 of them in the end.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for all of that. We're going to leave you now with this nice scene from this movie with the very long title. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Honey, I can't find the keys to my car. Sorry, I really have to test the living room before buying them. Maria and I bonded instantaneously when I told her all about India. I'll see you tomorrow under the Eiffel Tower.
Okay. Oh, here in Paris, we do it on the cheeks.
Since I had no money, I chose to stay there for the night.
That one.
Where are we going? London. London? Please, I have to go back to Paris. Karma, it works every time.
You're a refugee?
Yes.